Morning begins the same way it has for years, with the shimmer of Lake Michigan slipping through the tall windows and finding me before the clock does. From our condo on Lake Shore Drive, the water looks like brushed steel. If I angle the blinds just right, the light softens the corners of the furniture and makes the room appear kinder than it feels. I used to paint in this light, back when clients called me by both names and trusted my eye for color harmony, when I could talk for hours about how blue shifts depending on who's standing in front of it. Now my sketchbooks live in a drawer that sticks. Still, I keep one small notebook in the kitchen, hope it seems has its own muscle memory. Ethan Cole walks in reading messages like their morning prayers. People in this city say his name with a careful kind of respect. The high-profile attorney who donates libraries, speaks at fundraisers, and sends handwritten thank you notes. In photographs he looks generous. At home he's precise. I've memorized his precision the way a pianist learns scales. Big evening, he says without looking up. The Richmond Foundation Gala at 7. Black suit. We'll leave at 6:15. He says we, but he means him. I pour hot water over an herbal blend because coffee makes my hands tremble, and he prefers when my voice doesn't. Do you need anything pressed? I ask. I sent everything out, he replies. Wear the slate dress. There are 5 gray dresses in my closet. He likes when choices can't be seen. After he showers, I wipe the fogged mirror with a towel. Our reflections overlap. His shoulders, my face behind his. For a heartbeat, I catch a version of myself that still resembles the girl who stayed up late sketching until the air smelled like citrus oil and graphite. Back then I believed marriage was a shared studio. 2 people building one picture, leaving fingerprints on each other's canvas. At noon, I take the train up to River North for a salon appointment. Nora, the stylist, has fast hands and kind eyes that know when not to ask. Ends are full reshape, she says. Just a polish, I answer. Something that doesn't announce itself. She smiles. So elegant without effort. Exactly. That phrase could be stitched into my life. Across the street, a muralist stands on a ladder, filling a wall with color. The oranges glow like sunlight caught mid-laugh. I watch him dip his brush and think how loud color can be when it isn't afraid of being seen. Back home, I hang the slate dress on the closet door and set Ethan's cuff links on the dresser. He favors the ones shaped like tiny gavels, charming, people say. I place my sketchbook beside the lamp. The last page holds a pencil drawing of an empty chair by a window, the light pouring in but touching nothing. I add a single shadow line and close it before it turns into confession. At 6:15 we ride down in silence. The elevator mirrors are cruelly honest. Ethan adjusts his tie again. I adjust my breathing. The Ridgemont Gala takes place downtown in a hall with marble floors and chandeliers that hang like captured constellations. The air smells faintly of cedar polish and citrus oil. Men in fitted suits move as if they invented certainty. Their partners gather near tables with glasses that catch the light like trophies. Paige from Ethan's office meets us at the door. Clipboard, perfect posture, polite efficiency. You're at table 5, she says. Ethan, they'd like you near the lectern for closing remarks. At table 5, the napkins fold into sharp triangles. The names printed in gold ink are familiar from donation letters and committee lists. Ethan talks with a hospital director about grants, then with a curator about a possible endowment. I nod, smile, and manage the pauses like someone balancing glass on her fingertips. Then the new arrival, younger, confident, a dress that moves as if it rehearsed. Ethan, she says softly but not privately. Traffic nearly ruined me. He stands. Mara, glad you made it. Mara Hart, a communications consultant, according to Paige's emails. Ethan hired her to modernize messaging. That phrase stuck in my mind like a burr. She takes the seat beside him. Her perfume is light with a hint of something sharp, grapefruit maybe. When she brushes his jacket sleeve, it's subtle enough to deny, deliberate enough to notice. You look rested, she says. He laughs. Hardly. I tell myself to be gracious. I ask her about her neighborhood, her work, the art shows she's seen lately. She answers with poise, bright, clipped sentences that sound polished by practice. Then she says it. The light in your reading nook must be perfect in the afternoon. That curve of the lake, breathtaking. My hand stills around the spoon. Reading nook. We don't use that phrase. And only from our floor can you see the lake bend like that. I decide she's observant. Some people are. Dinner arrives, conversation weaving through laughter. Midway through, Mara leans closer, fingertips ghosting near Ethan's tie. "You've got a crease," she murmurs, smoothing it with a small practice gesture. The movement is too casual to be innocent. Ethan keeps his face composed, voice smooth, public. He slips into his practice professional tone. Warm, rehearsed, unreachable. "Mara's a lifesaver," he says. "We'd be lost without her." I trace the rim of my plate. "Does tie correction fall under her official scope?" I ask lightly. "Or is that a pro bono service?" A polite laugh flutters across the table, thin as tissue. Mara doesn't blink. "We all help where we can," she says. Ethan's hand finds my elbow beneath the linen. The pressure is brief, the message familiar. Dessert arrives, spun sugar catching the light like frost. Phones rise around us. Mara angles hers, the screen reflecting the chandelier. "This room deserves a photo," she says, capturing Ethan blurred in the background. "Maybe I'll post work worth doing." I sip my water, the chill curling through my chest. When Ethan stands for his toast, the hall stills. He thanks benefactors, praises vision, speaks of gratitude. The audience listens like a congregation. He's always known how to sound sincere. I watch them watching him, faces lit by belief. Admiration looks like trust until it doesn't. Later, outside, the air smells faintly of river wind and stone. The driver opens the car door. Inside, soft jazz hums from the radio. Ethan checks messages, locks his phone, and turns toward me with that public smile he can't quite turn off. "That question at dinner," he says. "Unnecessary. I was making conversation." My tone is even, careful. "You know how this works. Perception matters. We don't improvise in rooms like that. I fold my hands. She seemed to know things about our place." "She's observant," he says simply. "That's why she's useful. We'll talk later." "We'll talk later" means he'll speak, and I'll listen until silence counts as agreement. Upstairs, the condo hums with quiet machinery. The lake outside is a dark sheet of metal, restless but restrained. I hang the slate dress on its hanger. Ethan pauses at the doorway, jacket off, tone composed. "Next time," he says, "remember you're there to represent stability, not to test it." I glance at his collar, smooth now, precise, and feel a strange calm settle in. "What exactly did we represent tonight?" I ask. He exhales. "We'll revisit this when you're less reactive." Reactive. The word lands softly, the way labels do when they're meant to stick. He walks to his study, the room with his chair, his view, his control. I stay where I am, feeling the stillness grow around me. On the nightstand waits my sketchbook. I open it to a blank page and draw the outline of a door left slightly open. Light spills through the gap, just enough to touch the floor. In the next room, his voice begins again, low, persuasive, made for juries and donors alike. I put the pencil down. Outside, the lake presses against the shore with the patience of repetition. Inside, I realize that even silence can practice breathing before it learns to speak. When I turn off the lamp, the city sends its faint glow through the glass. It traces the edge of the door I've drawn until the line gleams like a promise. And for the first time in a long while, I fall asleep not fearing the morning, but wondering what might happen if the door someday opened. Morning smells like rain and soap. The storm that brushed the city overnight left streaks on the windows, and the lake looks almost black, restless but oddly patient. Ethan leaves early, already dressed for a deposition downtown. His brief goodbye is a practiced routine. A kiss that lands somewhere near my cheek and the faint click of the door latch that follows it. When the silence settles, I sit at the counter with my mug and realize it's the first time in weeks I've actually heard the apartment breathe. Refrigerators hum differently when no one is speaking. I open my small sketchbook and stare at the unfinished door I drew last night. The line is lighter than I remember. I darken it slightly, then add a hinge. It feels like an act of rebellion, that tiny sound of graphite on paper. The morning news plays from a radio across the street. Weather, traffic. A story about an art fair opening in Hyde Park. I almost switch it off, but the word art hangs there, daring me. By the time the segment ends, I've already searched the fair on my phone. They're accepting last-minute vendor applications. I haven't shown anything in 8 years. The idea of sending a portfolio feels almost absurd, but the form asks for digital sketches, and my folder of drafts sits quietly on my laptop like it's been waiting. Before I can change my mind, I submit 3 pieces under a name that feels borrowed from a past life, Clara Reed Design. I stare at the screen after clicking send, half expecting Ethan's voice to appear behind me, correcting a detail or questioning the point. Instead, the apartment just hums its neutral hum. By noon I decide to walk. Chicago in late March smells like wet concrete and promises no one intends to keep. The sky stretches wide, that pale blue that makes buildings look taller. I pass the gallery district where I once delivered client mock-ups, back when my hands were steady from caffeine and ambition. Halfway down Franklin Avenue, I see a sign taped to a window. Community Studio Volunteers Welcome. Inside, paint-splattered floors, mismatched tables, and a woman with a headscarf arranging brushes into jars. "Can I help you?" she asks, friendly but assessing. "I used to design," I say, hearing how strange it sounds. "I'm not sure what I'm looking for." "Most of us aren't," she replies, smiling. "I'm Denise. We run classes for teens. You're welcome to sit in, no pressure." The air smells like turpentine and cinnamon. Someone is playing quiet music through an old speaker, the kind of slow guitar rhythm that fills spaces without asking permission. I stay for 20 minutes that turn into 2 hours. I help a boy named Aaron find the right brush for lettering. I suggest that a girl named Mia try a smaller canvas. Their laughter feels unscripted, the way sound did before I started editing myself. When I finally check my phone, there are 3 missed messages from Ethan. Ethan, board dinner moved to Thursday. You'll come. Ethan, order new invitations before 5. The vendor has our file. Ethan, please confirm receipt. I type received, then confirmed, then delete both drafts and simply put the phone face down. By evening, the clouds move back in. I stop for groceries at the small market near the building. The clerk, an older man with soft eyes, bags my produce carefully. "You look like someone who's been outside her routine," he says, kindly teasing. "Maybe that's a good thing," I answer. Back home, I cook something simple, vegetables and pasta, the kind of meal Ethan calls student food. The smell fills the apartment, warm and bright. I eat standing by the window, watching lights switch on across the street like tiny declarations of existence. At 9, Ethan calls. His voice is smooth as usual, but there's an edge of curiosity. "Did you get my texts?" "Yes. You sound distracted." "I went for a walk." "In this weather?" "I needed air." He pauses long enough for the silence to stretch thin. "We have that air filter for a reason," he says finally, then adds, "I'll be late tomorrow. Don't wait up." "Okay. Clara," he says, tone softening into something that sounds like charm. "You know I appreciate how steady you are, right?" "I know," I reply. But when the line clicks dead, I realize I don't know what he means anymore. I wash the dishes slowly. The rhythm of water and glass is strangely grounding. On the counter, my sketchbook waits open to the page with the door. I draw a second line beside it, a figure small facing the light. Before bed, I check my email one last time. There's a subject line I don't expect. "Congratulations, Hyde Park Art Fair selection." My pulse jumps. The message is brief. "We'd love to include your work this weekend. Booth set up Friday afternoon. Welcome back to creating." I sit for a long moment, hands trembling in a way coffee could never explain. From the bedroom, I hear the low mechanical buzz of the heater. The apartment feels almost like a held breath. I whisper it aloud just to see if the words still fit in my mouth. "I'm going to show again." The sound feels strange but right, like opening a window that's been painted shut. When I turn off the light, the city glows against the glass. The reflection shows 2 shapes, one that still belongs here, and one that's beginning to walk toward the space between what is and what might be. Friday morning unfolds in shades of quiet gray. I wake before the alarm and lie still, listening to the soft shuffle of the city below. Ethan's side of the bed is cold. He left early again, which is almost a kindness. The message from the art fair confirmation still glows on my phone. I reread it twice before getting up, half afraid it might vanish if I look away too long. Downstairs, the doorman nods. "Morning, Miss Reed." The name catches me. It's been so long since anyone said it aloud that it sounds borrowed, like a word I used to know but forgot how to use. I take the bus instead of a rideshare, sitting near the back where the windows rattle. The city moves around me. People with coffee cups, school bags, headphones, all going somewhere they chose. The Hyde Park Community Center is smaller than I imagined, but alive in a way expensive buildings never are. Tables line the courtyard, canopies flapping in the wind, the smell of paint and sugar and rain mixing into something oddly human. Denise, the woman from the studio, spots me immediately. "You showed up," she says, handing me a badge. That's the hardest part. My booth is a narrow space with white walls and a folding chair. I tape up 6 prints, all new, each one a different study of light through doorways. I call the collection Thresholds. Feels private and exposed at once. A woman in a denim jacket stops first. "These make me feel like I've been here before," she says, tilting her head. "Do you paint from memory?" "Mostly from waiting," I answer, and she smiles like she understands. By noon, a few people have bought small prints. Not much money, but the sound of the bills sliding into the tin box feels like proof of existence. During a lull, Denise brings me a paper cup of lemonade. "So what's your story, Clara?" she asks. I hesitate. "I used to be married to a schedule." She laughs softly. "Aren't we all?" The sky clears mid-afternoon. Light spills over the tents, warm and clean. It paints everything in honesty. Then I see him, Ethan, standing at the far end of the walkway, the kind of presence that pulls a room taut without saying a word. He's in his usual gray coat, polished, measured, like someone who arrived to audit the day. I don't move. My pulse stutters in my throat. He walks slowly, scanning the booths as if choosing his angle. When he stops in front of mine, his smile is for the crowd, not for me. "I didn't realize you'd signed up for this," he says. His voice carries the easy warmth he uses at fundraisers. "I decided last minute." He studies the paintings, hands in pockets. "Doorways," he says finally. "Symbolic, I assume." "Maybe literal," I reply. "You should have told me," he says, still smiling. "We could have arranged sponsorship, made it more professional." "It's not that kind of show." He leans in slightly. "Everything's that kind of show, Clara. People watch. They make assumptions." I meet his eyes. "Let them." Something flickers across his face, surprise maybe. He looks around at the modest setup, at the people browsing in jeans and backpacks. "This is what you're doing with your time now?" "I think so," I say, steady. Before he can reply, Denise appears beside me. "You must be Clara's husband," she says brightly. "We've heard so much about her. Talented woman." Ethan offers a polite handshake. "We're both busy," he says. "Different focuses." "Well, I hope you're proud," Denise adds. "She's inspired half the teens in our program already." He nods once, a motion that ends the conversation. "I'll see you at home," he says to me, quiet but pointed, before walking away. I don't exhale until he disappears behind the crowd. Denise touches my arm. "That man has a storm inside his suit," she murmurs. "Something like that," I say. The rest of the day passes in fragments. Laughter, sales, sunlight fading. When I pack up at dusk, my hands smell like graphite and lemon. For the first time in years, I feel the pleasant ache of having built something for myself. At home, Ethan's car is already in the garage. I brace myself before stepping in. The apartment feels too clean, too arranged. He's in the living room, glass of whiskey in hand, tie loosened. "You blindsided me today," he says without prelude. "I didn't know I needed clearance." "It's not about clearance. It's about discretion. Optics. The fair isn't a scandal, Ethan. It's art." He sets the glass down a little too hard. "You can't decide that after years of letting me handle how we're seen. You can't just change the narrative overnight." "I didn't change it," I say quietly. "I just stopped editing mine." The silence stretches, heavy and aware. He exhales through his teeth, a sound between disbelief and irritation. "You're being dramatic." "Maybe," I say. "But it's my drama this time." He laughs, but there's no humor in it. "We'll talk when you're calmer." He walks toward his study. The door closes with the soft finality of habit. I stand in the middle of the room, the echo of his words still hanging like a chord that refuses to resolve. On the counter, my phone buzzes. A message from Denise. You were brilliant today. Keep going. Proud of you. I set the phone down and looked toward the balcony. The sky is violet now, the kind of color that fades fast if you don't watch it. I step outside barefoot. The air smells like cold metal and rain. Far below, headlights drift like quiet constellations. I close my eyes and imagine every doorway I painted glowing from within. Maybe the cracks were never flaws. Maybe they were the first signs of light trying to get in. The next few days settle into an uneasy rhythm. Not calm exactly, but the kind of stillness that follows a storm too proud to admit it's over. Ethan leaves earlier than usual, his voice clipped, his shoes sharp against the floor. When he's gone, the air feels wider. I fill the space with small sounds. The kettle boiling, a pencil rolling across the counter, the gentle scrape of a chair. I start sketching again each morning. Nothing finished, just lines that know where they want to go. Sometimes I trace the outline of a window, sometimes the shape of a figure standing outside it. It's not about perfection anymore. It's about movement. By Wednesday, I receive an email from the community studio. Denise writes, "We're short a volunteer Friday. Could you teach the beginner class?" The word teach stings with disbelief. I reread the message twice before answering yes. At dinner that night, I mention it to Ethan carefully, like stepping onto ice. "They asked me to help at the studio Friday," I say. "It's just one class." He doesn't look up from his tablet. That's the same night as the Harborview benefit. I wasn't invited. He finally glances at me. "You're always invited, Clara. It's implied." "I'll be at the studio," I repeat, quieter but firmer. He sighs. "Do what you want, but don't make it look like defiance. People notice patterns." I almost laugh. Maybe they'll notice I'm still alive. He blinks, assessing whether that was sarcasm or warning. Then he says evenly, "Try not to embarrass either of us." After he leaves the table, I realize I'm no longer afraid of his disappointment, only tired of its weight. Friday evening smells of paint and rain again. The studio's full of chatter and nervous laughter. The students are mostly teenagers, each carrying too much hope and not enough confidence. Denise hands me a small apron and says, "Just guide them. Don't fix them." The words settle deep. Halfway through class, I kneel beside a girl named Lily whose hands shake when she draws. "It's okay," I tell her. "Lines don't need to be straight to tell the truth." She looks up surprised. "You really think so?" "I know so." When class ends, Denise claps me on the shoulder. "You've got away with them," she says. "Want to make it a regular thing?" The question feels too big for one breath. "Maybe," I answer. But inside something whispers yes. That night I come home late. Ethan's jacket hangs on the chair, his tie draped across the couch arm. He's on a call in his study, voice low and deliberate, the tone he saves for persuasion. I catch fragments. Optics. Committee. Strategy. I step quietly past the door. My reflection stares back from the glass of the hallway mirror. Hair loose, paint still on my wrist. I look like someone halfway through becoming. In the bedroom, my phone buzzes. It's a message from Denise again. Next week's theme is what freedom looks like. Bring something to show. I smile, small but real. Freedom. The word tastes strange in my mouth, like fruit not yet in season. Saturday morning, Ethan decides to play the role of civility. He makes coffee, sets a cup in front of me. "You seem occupied lately," he says. "New priorities." "I'm just working on something." "Working," he repeats like he's testing the word. "You mean your hobby?" "My work," I correct. His jaw tightens. "Don't mistake distraction for purpose, Clara. It's dangerous." I meet his eyes. Maybe the danger isn't distraction. Maybe it's silence. For a moment, neither of us moves. Then his voice softens, that practiced calm returning. "You're tired. Take some time. The board dinner's next week. Be ready." He leaves the room before I can answer. I look down at the mug, the steam fading fast. For years I thought peace meant keeping the surface smooth. Now I'm learning it sometimes begins with the first ripple. That night I dream of the lake again, only this time I'm not watching it through glass. I'm standing in it, water around my knees, cold and clean. The city lights behind me like distant constellations. In my hands, the door from my sketchbook floats. Small, weightless, open. When I wake, my pulse is steady, my breathing clear. The horizon outside the window blushes with a new color, one I don't have a name for yet. I reach for my pencil before the feeling fades. By the next week, the city shifts again. Spring edges closer but refuses to commit. Wet mornings, sudden sun, the smell of thawed pavement. Every day I walk a little farther from the condo before turning back. It's not exercise. It's proof I can choose a direction. The studio becomes my second gravity. I start teaching twice a week, and Denise pays me in small bills in gratitude. The kids call me Ms. Reed, and each time I almost don't recognize the name, then realize I like that it belongs to me again. Ethan doesn't ask where I go anymore, though I can tell he notices. His eyes linger longer on the clock when I come in late, on the paint smudges that never quite wash off my hands. He says nothing, but silence is a language we both speak fluently now. On Wednesday afternoon, Denise asks if I'll stay after class. "You've been quiet lately," she says. "Everything okay at home?" The question lands like a pebble in still water, small but the ripples go deep. "I'm fine," I tell her automatically. She raises an eyebrow. "That's not what I asked." I sigh. "He's particular. Controlling." The word makes my stomach tighten. "Measured," I say instead. "He likes predictability." "Predictable is safe," she says. "Until it's a cage." I don't answer. She doesn't press. Instead, she points to a blank canvas on the wall. "Paint something for yourself. No audience. No purpose. Just for breathing. Promise I will." That night, Ethan brings home flowers, white tulips, perfect and scentless. He places them on the counter between us like an apology prepackaged for display. "Board dinner went well," he says. "They were asking about you." "Really?" "Of course. People notice when someone disappears from the scene. Maybe I was never really there," I say before I can stop myself. He frowns, as though I've spoken in a language he doesn't approve of. "You're tired," he says finally. "We've both been stretched thin." He steps closer, smooths my hair with a gentleness that feels rehearsed. "You used to be calmer," he murmurs. "I miss that." "I used to be quieter," I correct softly. "There's a difference." He studies me for a moment longer, then walks away. The tulips stay where he left them, neat, colorless, unblinking. By Saturday, I can't stand the apartment's polished silence anymore. I go to the studio early when it's still empty, and set up the blank canvas Denise gave me. I squeeze out paint with no plan, no palette, just impulse. Strokes of deep green, flashes of white, gold lines breaking through the surface like light in water. It's messy and raw and not beautiful in any proper sense. But when I step back, I realize it's the first thing I've made that feels honest. Ethan calls mid-afternoon. I let it ring out. Then again. I still don't answer. Finally, a message. "Where are you? We have guests at 6. I type back. "At the studio." "Don't wait." For the first time, I hit send without apology. When I get home late that night, the apartment lights are dimmed, the dishes cleaned, the scent of wine lingering. Ethan sits at the table, tie gone, expression unreadable. "You ignored me," he says, calm but sharp. "I was working." "Working?" "At that little art club." "It's not little," I say. "And it's mine." He leans back. "You're making this difficult." "No," I say quietly. "I'm making it real." His eyes narrow. "You're acting out." I don't know why. Maybe because I've spent years acting in. The air thickens between us. For a heartbeat, I think he might shout, but he doesn't. He just shakes his head like he's disappointed in the weather. When he finally speaks, his voice is low. "Don't destroy what we've built, Clara." I meet his gaze. Maybe what we built was never meant to last. He leaves the room. The sound of his study door closing is soft but final. I stand there for a long time, surrounded by quiet furniture and the faint echo of my own pulse. Then I take the tulips from the counter and carry them to the balcony. The night air is cold against my skin. Below, the lake reflects the city in broken gold fragments. I let the tulips fall, white petals scattering like surrender. For a long time I watch them drift until the wind folds them into the dark. I don't feel triumphant. I just feel lighter. Inside, my phone buzzes. A message from Denise. "Bring your painting Monday. We're hanging it in the front room." I look toward the open sketchbook on the table, the one with the door and the light. I take a pencil and write beneath it. Maybe freedom isn't loud. Maybe it's the sound of nothing left to explain. I close the book gently. The line glows in my mind like a match held steady in the dark. Sunday morning arrives in soft gray light. The lake is restless again. Small waves pushing against the wall like something remembering how to breathe. I wake before the alarm as always, but for once there's no dread waiting beside me. Ethan's suitcase stands by the door, sleek, expensive, expressionless. He told me last night he'd be traveling to Washington for a conference. A few days, he said, voice too even. We both pretended not to hear the relief hiding underneath it. Now as I sip tea by the window, I realize the apartment sounds different without his presence. Less like silence, more like space. I pull my sketchbook closer and flip through the pages. The door, the figure, the outlines of light. On the last blank page, I draw a horizon line, thin, simple, and stop there. Feels like enough. When Ethan finally wheels the suitcase out, he pauses in the doorway. Take care of yourself, he says. I plan to, I answer. He studies my face as if searching for the version of me that used to nod. But that woman doesn't live here anymore. He leaves without another word. The sound of the elevator doors closing echoes like punctuation. By late afternoon, I'm at the studio. Denise waves from across the room, her smile as easy as breath. You made it, she says. I was hoping you'd show up. I didn't want to waste the quiet. She laughs. That's how it starts, using quiet instead of running from it. The class today is small. Only 3 students. Lily, Aaron, and a new boy, Theo, who refuses to look anyone in the eye. We paint doors, not perfect ones, just shapes of possibility. When I tell them that every open space begins with a line, Theo finally smiles. By the end, the tables are covered in paper and color, and the smell of acrylic fills the room like proof of effort. I hang my own small canvas next to theirs. A simple doorway painted gold at the edges, no figure this time, just light spilling through. Denise stands beside me. That one's you, she says. Maybe it's the space I'm walking toward. That night I don't go straight home. Instead I take the long route by the lake. The air smells like rain and city smoke. Couples walk, dogs, joggers pass. Someone plays a saxophone near the pier. For the first time I don't feel invisible in it all. The sky fades to deep indigo, the water flickering with borrowed light. I think of all the years I measured my worth by someone else's calm, all the ways I learned to shrink quietly. It feels strange to realize I don't owe that version of me an apology, only a goodbye. When I finally reach the condo, the hallway feels less like a cage and more like a chapter that's closing itself. Inside, the air still carries his cologne faintly, but it's fading, the way echoes do when the speaker's gone. I open the balcony doors wide. The wind rushes in, cool and sharp. Across the street, windows flicker to life one by one. I wonder how many of them hold stories like mine, half escaped, half beginning. I take the tulip vase from the counter, empty now, and place a single new stem inside. A wildflower I picked on the walk home. Imperfect, color like sunrise, edges frayed. On the table my sketchbook lies open. I write one last line beneath the drawing of the open door. Freedom isn't a destination. It's a decision that never stops breathing. Then I set down the pencil, close the book, and let the evening fill the room. Outside, the lake keeps moving, patient and steady. Somewhere below, laughter drifts up from the street. Ordinary, human, alive. I lean against the balcony rail and let the wind touch my hair. There's no soundtrack, no applause, no dramatic ending. Just the quiet hum of a world that finally includes me again. For the first time in years, I'm not rehearsing what to say. I'm simply here, in the soft beginning of my own life.